the aesthetics in the house are completely gone. Try throwing some rocks at it, maybe smashing it with a hammer, and under the garage door, that they're not expecting some of these things to happen or to be there. You got to see what we got going on here. Hey guys, Will here with Suburban Response. Hope you're having a great day. I want to talk about a series that I think we're going to start doing here. It's maybe 4 or 5 parts. I'm not sure exactly how many yet. But I want to talk about security, defensive positions, things like that. And because we're going to do different parts, because usually when it comes to security, you want rings or layers of defense. You don't want a single one, because if somebody breaches that, then you've got nothing to fall back on. By all means, this is not meant to be definitive. These are all the answers. There will never be anything better. But I hope that this will start a discussion. I hope that as you think of things, you will leave those ideas and thoughts in the comments. If you have questions, let's talk about them there too. As a community, we can really benefit from those conversations, because I'm a suburban dad. I love my family. I want to take care of them. I've never served in the military, but I think about these things. I pay attention to the people I watch on YouTube, ideas that pop into my head as I'm reading different things. And I think it's worth thinking about. We're not trying to be crazy. We're just trying to be ready. I put some slides together so we can talk about things that help keep me focused, hopefully give you some visuals. Let me pull those up here real quick. And so let's talk about our innermost layer of security right now. So we're going to talk about how do we secure the inside of our home. I think the idea with this is if things were going on in the world, hopefully it's just a temporary thing and it's not a longer lasting event. You could put some security measures in place that wouldn't necessarily be visible from the outside. So we're kind of doing this incognito mode. The neighbors walking around on the street or anybody driving past the house, nothing's going to look noticeably different. But from the inside, we know that we've got things locked away a little tighter than they would have been normally. The idea is that we're going to slow them down, maybe give them a reason to say this house isn't worth it. I'm going to move on to the next one that's a little easier. Sorry, neighbors. Or at least give us time to retreat to maybe a safe room or another exit out of the property, or to prepare a defense, whatever we need to do in that scenario, whatever's warranted. So let's start there. And let's see here. We're going to talk a little bit about doors. It's the first place we usually come in and out of our homes. If you're lucky, you've got a door more like the one on the left that's solid and well hidden. I like those a lot because I'm a very functional kind of guy. The door on the right is more appealing to my wife. And that honestly is more what we have. We have a door that's solid, but it has windows along the edges to it. So it's great. It lets you peek out when somebody rings the doorbell. It lets some light in, when the sun's up during the day. But it's also harder to defend. So there are trade-offs in both of those scenarios. I feel very fortunate that I have a great wife who helps me live in the moment. So while I'm thinking about all these things in the back of my head, she's saying, that's great, your daughter has a game, we're going to go show up and support her. But with that said, there are some trade-offs sometimes. So I tend to find myself trying to work around situations like the door on the right. And there are ways to do that. We can have both and still be ready to go. So let's talk about some options on how we would secure something like this. First of all, let's check our screws and our door hardware. Usually the screws that come with the kits for the hinges, the bolts, the doorknob, they're not very long. Again, the idea is that they know they've only got so much wood to screw into. You need to take a look at your scenario. Like I said, I've got windows on the outside of mine. So even if I want to replace those with longer screws that would give it more support, it's going to lock it in a little tighter to the 2x4s that are in the wall. A 3-inch screw is going to be too long in my case, just because I'm going to possibly tap into those windows. I don't want to break the glass. So I'm going to find something that's just long enough. I think usually between 2 and 3 inches, 1.5 might be the shortest you could go. But what we're doing is we're strengthening that connection between, those points where the door connects to the house, and we're just making it a bit more secure. Again, it's not going to guarantee that it's impenetrable. Enough force and effort, somebody still may be able to get through that. But again, we're trying to make it harder for them. So we want to look at the doorknob. We want to look at the deadbolt. We want to look at the hinges. And this is a quick thing that you can do on a Saturday morning. Just grab a box of screws after you do a little measuring and change those out one at a time. You don't have to worry about taking the door off or doing anything like that. It'll hold it up with the other screws and you're done. It's one thing to cross off of your list. If we want to go beyond that, we've got some other ideas here. I actually own a set of these, and there's a certain peace of mind that comes to me just for having them. I hope I never have to put them up, because I know if I do, now we've definitely gone to functional. The aesthetics in the house are completely gone. But these, it kind of works like the, if you think about the old castles where they'd have a giant piece of wood that they'd drop in front of the gates to keep the, the hordes from coming in. This is the same idea, but with a 2x4. I would want to use a stud finder and sink these into the wall where there were existing 2x4s with some longer screws. I like this idea because my thought had been, these are in place to help you sink these screws in, which is great. You need that to make it happen. But then I could take my 2x4 and bore out a hole and get a dowel that I could just kind of tap in there. That would help make this a lot harder to shake loose or to knock off in that case. If somebody were to be, trying to lift it up or ram against it, maybe they've broken the windows on the side of my door and now they're trying to lift it up. Again, it may not stop them, but I want to make it harder for them. So this is an idea. You could do a 2 sets, one on the top and bottom of the door if you had one door that you're really trying to secure. Or, if you've got a front door and a back door, maybe you've got a garage door, maybe you want a few sets of these, so you've got options. I've got mine staged so that I could put them up relatively quickly if I needed to. I know where they are in the garage. I can just grab the box. I've got my measurements done, and I can put them in place. So again, as long as the threat isn't right on my doorstep when I notice this, I've got a little time, because that's one of the benefits of being in the suburbs usually. There are other options like this, which is just kind of a door jamb. I've known people that have traveled with things like this when they were in hotels a lot. One thing I would think about in a really severe instance would be to get that in place, get it nice and tight, and then on the floor, nail or screw in a little section of 2x4 just so it's that much harder to shake if somebody's banging up against the door. We're possibly ruining the floor if you've got hardwoods. That's going to be noticeable afterwards. But hey, those things can be replaced after the family's safe. Really, at the end of the day, that's our main concern. Family's not replaceable. Everything else can be fixed. I will try and put some links to these things down below, just so you've got some ideas. There may be better prices you find on this, but you can start the search and see what you like. Now, this is another one. Zach actually gave me one of these. And so I've got some of these for my doors now. I don't have them on yet, but again, I've got them marked where I know where they would go. I could throw them up quickly. One of the things that I noticed here is they've got an interesting little thing in the picture where this is great if you've got young kids, which I do have a toddler in my house. You can put this up here high where they can't reach it, and that might be the right idea. But I also started thinking about, what if my kids are getting older and I still need them to go in and out, and maybe I want them to have some access. You could actually put it down here, a little lower where they could still reach it. I've still got a deadbolt up high, so I'm not as worried about them being able to get out, but I could have multiple layers of security. And as they get older, they can use different ones depending on what I'm allowing them to get, how I want them to go in and out, things like that. The other cool thing about having it down low is if you've got windows like I do along the side, now somebody's got to reach down and try and fiddle with that. It's not an obvious spot they're going to look right off of the bat. I'm probably not stopping anybody from getting in my house if they're really determined, but I am slowing them down so I've got time to react and respond. Let's talk about sliding doors. I don't have one of these now. I have had one in my last house. You can buy things like this. Honestly, I had just a branch from a tree that was nice and sturdy that had kind of hardened over time that I trimmed down to the right size and dropped it in there. And that works just as well, too. You can get wooden dowels at any hardware store that are probably cheaper than this. But if you want something sturdy and dedicated, this is a great idea. Can someone pick up a chair and smash through the glass window? Yeah, unfortunately, they could. We'll talk about some options for that, though. This is another one I found. I haven't tried these, but I like the idea of them because they're small. And sometimes we've got small spaces that we're trying to work into. I would imagine that if you got this up close enough to the edge of the door or the window or whatever you're trying to secure with it, it's going to make it hard to get a lot of force behind it or momentum if you're trying to open something. So this could be a good possibility for smaller things or tighter spaces. I would love it if somebody has some of these and you've tried them out. I'd love it if you'd share your thoughts and how they've worked and how you've applied them in the comments. That would be fabulous to share the community here. So as we move on to, we've got glass doors and windows. This is something that you can buy. The aesthetics are nice, so it's something that if you're concerned about the balance between functionality and how things look, this could be a great way to trade off there. And you could even leave these in place all the time. Another thought I had after looking at these was you can go to the hardware store and buy some 1x2 pieces of wood, and you can usually get those in 6, 8, and 12 foot lengths. And you could go cut those to size, and then if you had some primer or some, semi-gloss white paint that matches the trim of your house or whatever the case might be, paint to match the trim of the windows, you could paint just the 1x2s, and they would probably fit in there and do the job just as well. If you needed to, you could add a rubber stopper to one end just so you've got a little flex that would help hold them in place, but you could still move them. That could be a fun little weekend project too, just to go around. Maybe you start with the windows on the bottom floor of the house, because, if they're carrying a ladder to get up to the second floor, they've got a lot more thought into why they need to be in your house than you want them to have. Or maybe you just pick one or two windows that are more likely to be vulnerable and play with those first and see how it goes, see what works, and then branch out from there. I like this idea, though. I think this is a great product if you just want to buy something and be done, because it's adjustable. It's really easy to work with. But, I kind of like doing things myself, too. I think the 1x2 option could be fun to play with. Now, this is something that I've picked up some of, and I have not tested it yet. My plan is to cut this to size, so I've got it ready to go on the windows that I want to apply it to first and foremost, and then just have it ready. The idea behind this is that it's a thin layer of plastic that basically would hold the glass together and help hold things in place, even if somebody did try to smash it. It's, from what research I've done, it comes anywhere from 4 mil all the way up to 8 mil. 8 mil is going to be a little thicker. So it might be a little more noticeable. You can buy it in clear, or you can buy it in like a kind of reflective, almost like a sun-blocking sunglass type material. That would be nice from a security perspective, that you can see out, but they can't easily see in. You just got to decide if that's the aesthetic you want for your house, especially if you're going to put it up ahead of time and just have it there all the time. The other nice thing about that too is it would help keep some of the heat out of the house and reflect some of that back out. So if that's then maybe that's the reason primarily why you want to put this up, and the security is secondary. But yeah, you can apply this. It's going to make it harder to break through. I don't know that it's impenetrable or that it'll stop anybody forever. I don't think anything on the market's going to do that. But again, it's just another added level. You think about it, if somebody threw a rock or a brick at your house, it would be nice to have the window catch it and stop it right there rather than it going through. It doesn't mean the second or the third one won't make it through. But again, you've got time to react. This one, I thought I'd never seen anything like this before, and as I was looking around on Amazon, I thought this was kind of a cool option. You've got a gate that you can put in there. The thing I like about this is if you want your window open, because, what if you're in a scenario where power's out or limited, and maybe you've got rolling brownouts? You can open a window and get some air flowing through, but you've still got security that somebody can't just readily climb through the window. This option here right now that I've got pictured, you would screw that in place and it's going to be there. It's going to stay there. You're mounting it. But one thing I want to point out here, I don't know if you can see down in this little gray area, they have a hinged option, which I like. The idea behind that is that, if you needed to get out that window, you could unhook it, it's hinged, and then you can climb on out. So I don't know, maybe one or two of these. If you had a couple, you could put them in windows. Now you can open those windows and get some airflow through the house if you needed to. Things you're going to have to worry about if you are doing that. Now you've got windows open. If you're trying to black things out and make it look like you're not home, this is going to be a little more noticeable. But just things like that you want to consider when you're looking at options. But I like the idea of airflow, because things get stuffy sometimes, and that's not fun for anybody. All right, let's talk about garage doors. Living in suburbia, we have a lot of garage doors, and there are some ways to secure them. I have watched some very interesting videos where people pretending to be burglars can take a stronger but still flexible wire, slide it under the garage door, and then they can basically bend it and hook it up. They'll kind of curve it as they go, and they can grab these handles. One of the design flaws, maybe, depending on how you want to call it. I'm sure if we talk to somebody in the industry, they've got all sorts of reasons why it's done this way. But if you pull on the handle, you pull it towards the door, and that unlatches the security feature, and that allows somebody to lift it up. I'm sure it means when you're sliding it closed without the mechanical assist, that's probably why they have it there. It does enable a savvy criminal an opportunity to be able to reach under with a wire, hook that, and pull it open, and now they've got access to your garage. So one of the things you can do that I thought was brilliantly clever, I saw this on a video by Colorado RMN, a quick zip tie. A lot of these just have a loop you can put it through and a little loop above it, or you could even zip tie it around the whole mechanism. And now they can pull on that all day long, and unless they can break the zip tie, that's not going anywhere. Such a simple little fix, but you're securing this entire area and making it a lot harder for someone to get into. Of course, They may still try and come through the door directly, but that's going to make a lot of noise. It's going to make a scene. Yeah, they may not want that at that point. Another option that you've got on garage doors, I've got these on mine, is they've got these little mechanisms here. I'm not sure exactly what to call this, but you push this bar in and it helps lock the garage door in place. That makes it harder to lift up. So now if you combine those two, now somebody's basically going to have to try and come through the garage door to get in and get your stuff that way. If you don't have one of these, I'm not sure if there are aftermarket options, but in a previous house that I had when I didn't have one of these, I found out that there were holes along the track here that I could easily slip a deadbolt through and just lock that in place. And so I've got the key to my deadbolt, or not deadbolt, but just like a lock. I can put the lock in place. I've got the key to it. Nobody else can get it. And now at best, they could lift that thing up a couple inches before they were coming in contact with that. It's a good option. At the end of the day, we're just trying to make this harder for somebody and discourage them from picking on our house specifically. So think about those things. I would love it if you guys have other ideas. My garage is one of those areas where I've got some stuff in that I really want to hang on to, but it's not as secure as the rest of my house, just simply because of the nature of how garages are built in houses nowadays. Love some ideas if you got some things to share on that below. So interior doors. Okay, so let's look at some options to kind of help ourselves out while we're in the house. And maybe craziness and chaos is going on outside, and we want to be extra secure. One of the things you could do is look at hallways. Do you kind of have a choke point? Maybe it's at the top of a staircase, or maybe all the bedrooms are down in one corner of the house. And is there a place that you could frame out and add in another door where you could put in a solid metal door, a solid wood door? Maybe that's the master bedroom. Maybe we're just going to replace the door there, and that's going to be the fallback place. We're going to hurry and grab the kids and say, hey, why don't you guys sleep in here tonight? Whatever that scenario might look like, but you've got a place you can fall back to where you've got a solid door. Again, you can use longer screws to reinforce the hinges, do some things like that. And now you're kind of creating a little quasi-safe room in your house. Another option that I like, I've got a piano in my main room. I feel like if I needed to, even though I might bar the door and do all sorts of things to the windows, I'm still going to roll that piano in front of the door because I can. It's big, it's heavy, and I can move it in the morning when I need to get outside. It's just one other thing to slow people down and kind of give me the extra peace of mind that I've got the time that I need to react, even if I'm groggy at 2 a.m. and something happens. So here's another thought I had. I'm curious about your thoughts on these things here. I've got a staircase in my house. What could I do to slow people down from being able to get from my downstairs, if they did get into my house, to my upstairs? Now, these are not things I'm going to do every night. I feel fortunate that I live in a fairly good part of town. There isn't a lot of crime compared to other areas in the city I live in. But just, if we're looking at options, if things did get bad, if things started feeling like they were closer to home, and I felt like I needed some of that, what could I do here? So these are the options I came up with here. On my stairs, I've got a love seat right around the corner that I could grab and turn that upside down, and I could throw that on the stairs. Is it going to stop somebody from getting up them? Not really. But again, I know my house. They don't know my house. I'm very comfortable in my house. I know the floorboards that creak. I know the one stair to avoid if I'm trying to sneak upstairs in the middle of the night and I'm trying not to wake the kids up. Somebody coming into your house isn't going to know your house the way you do. They're going to have that working against them. So anything else you can do to kind of throw up some chaos or kind of break up what they might consider normal in a house is going to work to your advantage. So yeah, taking a love seat and turning it upside down and throwing it halfway up the stairs, piling some cushions on top. Now if they want to get upstairs, they could have, can they move it? Sure, but it's one thing they've got to stop and think about. Maybe you've got dining room chairs that you could kind of throw on there and, put some of the legs to the railings. It's not permanent, but it just gives you that other, the other time to react again that I keep saying, gives you that element that they're not expecting some of these things to happen or to be there, and now you can do something about it. I've got a toddler in my house, so I've got baby gates, and for the time being, those are going to stay up, and I actually may keep them where I could put them in place and just pull them out of the attic and put them in place, because again, it's not going to stop anybody. It's one more thing to have to stop and think about if and when something happens that I don't have to think about because I know it's there and I know how they work and I know how to use them. Just ideas like that. What would work in your house? What are some things you could do to slow somebody up or make them, put something where it's not expected to be, just kind of throw off their thought process so you've got a little more time to do what you need to do. So let's talk about how do we get out of the house if we need to. Maybe you live in a ranch and you can hop out a window, any window that you've got on the other side of where the chaos might be coming from. But maybe you're in a 2-story house and you've got some options where you need to climb out of a window. I like things like this. I think they're good to have regardless, because what if there were a fire and everybody's upstairs, the fire's downstairs? Here's a great option. So we've got this in one of the bedrooms upstairs in our house. This is an option. I like it for price point, but I'm not sure with the hooks if you'd have to hook that onto a bed or if you need to, drill out something on the windowsill and have some eyelets in there to hook this onto. There are other options too like this. This is the one that I have. And I like this because I don't have to mess with the windowsill. That keeps my wife happy. But it's made and designed where you can hook it on a windowsill, you drop the ladder, and now you guys can climb out and get down. And yeah, you've got a way to get out of the house, whatever the situation is, and it's there if you need it. So just some other ideas I had while I was thinking about this. Fire extinguishers. Man, fire's a scary thing in a bad situation, especially when fire departments and other people may not be available to help right away. So yeah, have some ideas for how do you put out fires. Fire blankets, fire extinguishers, things like that, because you never know when you might need that. Accidents happen all the time. We're not just talking about, mass societal collapse here or temporary breakdowns and riots. Fires happen every day. So you have a fire extinguisher or two on hand. If you don't have space for kind of a big one that you can fit under the kitchen sink, maybe you get a couple of the small car-sized ones, and you can tuck those in a dresser, a nightstand, a closet, a linen closet, but you can have those on handy in different places throughout the house. And hopefully that would be enough that if there was a fire, you'd have time to get that, and that would be enough to help stop it, or at least get you guys to safety. Sandbags and bricks. So again, you could say bricks, you could say cinder blocks, things like that, but if you really wanted to, if you're really worried about things, you could line those on the inside wall of a house. So again, from the outside, it doesn't look like anything's going on, but now that's adding another layer of protection if you're worried. So the scenario I was thinking about with this was riots in the streets. And if people are walking around just randomly shooting guns, I don't necessarily want those coming through the wall of my house and impacting my family. I may not be able to stop it from, coming in my general direction, but the idea would be that you could use these kinds of things to slow it down, maybe catch it there so it's not actually penetrating into the interior of the house beyond that initial impact. I just want to keep my family safe. So keep things out of sight. If you've got stuff in your yard, maybe consider, do those things need to be there? I mean, I've got like a little table set with a couple of chairs on my front porch. They're nice. We sit out there. We'll use them from time to time. They're decorative, but they're also metal. They're not the strongest metal. Sitting right there, that's something somebody could grab and try and smash a window with. So maybe do a quick once around the house, especially in the front yard, and see if there are things you want to pull into the garage or inside, just to make things a little less accessible or a little more opportunistic for anybody that's walking through the neighborhood. Light control is another big one. I'm going to use the example from World War II where you had the bombing blitz on Great Britain. They made sure at night that they were blacking out every light they could because they didn't want the German planes to see the cities from below, and light was the giveaway. If they saw a bunch of light, they knew there was a city down there, that's where they wanted to bomb. Okay, so that's maybe an extreme example, but it's the same idea. If the house is blacked out, nobody's going to assume there are things going on inside. So what can you do to control that light? Heavy-duty curtains, close your blinds. Maybe consider having some cardboard on hand that you could cut out to the right size, and maybe spray painting one side of that black so when you put it up there, it just looks like you got a dark window from a distance. If somebody gets right up there, they're probably going to see it's cardboard. But these are things that you can do that from a distance helps you out a little bit. You're just looking for that edge here. Keep in mind that if things are down for a while, smoke can be seen and smelled. So if you're cooking on a grill, if you're using your fireplace, those are good things, and I think those are good options to have. But just keep in mind that may let others know, hey, you're around, things are going on. Maybe they can smell the food you're cooking. These may not be a day 1 or day 2 thing, but Western North Carolina just got hit with some really bad storms. They've been down for a few weeks now. Yeah, at that point, if somebody's using a fire or cooking over a cast iron stove and that smoke's being vented out, you're going to smell some of those things. So just something to be aware of. And then this last example was just an idea I came up with when I was trying to think through things. A peephole with a dark blanket or cover. So maybe you've got a peephole on your door. I have been in scenarios where I've worked things going door to door before, and you can tell when somebody comes into that peephole if you're paying attention. So if you've got something to cover that initially, so you can get up close to it and then kind of slide it to the side. You're buying yourself a little less transition in the light that's seen through it initially, and then when you put your face up to it. But I haven't thought of an idea that would be kind of on a larger scale. And so I tried to do a little I use the term graphic animation loosely on this here, but I think you'll get the idea here. This was the idea I was thinking for one of the windows in my house that's front facing, that would give me some access to the street and the front yard if I wanted to keep an eye on things without, really opening up an entire window or pulling a curtain aside all the way. So here's our window. Bear with me. I know I'm not the greatest graphic artist here, but this is our window. And what I want to do in my scenario is I'm going to start off and I'm going to cut a piece of cardboard to fit over this. So again, I can spray paint that black or gray or something that's dark so it looks like there's no light coming through there. And I can tack this around, and then I'm going to cut it down the middle here, maybe at about shoulder height, and give myself a couple of feet to work with perhaps. And so I can tack this all along the edge, and I can tack this along the edge. And so I'm covering the window now. I'm preventing light from escaping. So I've got a little more light security on that. But I've got this flap. I would recommend hinging it along the top so that when it falls down, gravity's going to help you out and keep that closed. And so, but you can still lift it up and you can peek out there and see what's going on. So next, if I'm really worried about some security, I'm going to put some plywood over the top of that just to help sturdy things. Again, if somebody breaks the window, the glass isn't necessarily going to come flying in. It's going to hinder their ability to get through that window right away, and just generally making me feel a little more safe and protected in some of those scenarios. So now I've got that. I can still lift up my hinge, and I can still see what's going on outside. But again, I don't want to let light in. Maybe it's nighttime, and we've got a lantern on back in another room. So what I can do is, this is my blanket. Imagine a heavy blanket. So I can take that and I could staple it or screw it along the top here into the wood and make sure that we're overlapping the edges. So now I can kind of creep under that thing first, and then I can lift up my flap. And now I've got a few layers now to try and help prevent that light from getting out. But I can still see outside and take a peek as to what's going on. If I'm hearing something go bump out there, I can go check out and see, if the boogeyman's out there tap dancing, or if it's something I got to be, concerned about. I've also thought that with this, I'd want to be able to cut a stick, where maybe I could find some way to prop it open, so I could do that, and that would let me step back a little further so my face wasn't right up there, but I could still kind of keep it open and keep an eye on things for maybe a bit more of a prolonged time period, without having to sit there and hold something open. I'd still have my hands free to do other things if I needed to. Think about that. There might be some creative ideas in there and things to consider. So anyways, this was my first pass. This is what I thought of when I thought about how do I look at my house if I wanted to try and secure from the inside to make it less noticeable that I'm trying to do this from the outside. This is kind of what I came up with. What thoughts do you have? I'm hoping that some of this triggered some ideas for you, and I would love to hear what those are in the comments. So please, let's start a conversation here. Share your ideas with me. I would love to learn from you. And please pass this along to a friend. If there's somebody that you think might benefit from this, let's share it with them. They might have some even better ideas. But anyways, as always, thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys have a great day. Just, when you're going through your day-to-day life, stop and pause and think. Are you ready?